New overpowered wool farm for Minecraft Bedrock Edition. This super tiny build can produce around 7,200 wool per minute, and that's not clickbait. This tiny farm uses 12 dispensers, all shearing a single sheep in unloaded chunks to produce absolutely insane rates. And it's so easy to build. This farm can also be used for getting tons of mushrooms and pumpkins. And this is our farm right here. There's really not much to it. We have a sheep and a bunch of dispensers, and then we're just gonna go stand over here real quick and turn on the build. I'm gonna let this run for exactly 1 minute and see how many items we get.
1 minute later.
And it's been 1 minute, so now we can just go ahead and fly over here. We'll feel a little bit of lag from all those items coming in, and as you can see, we have a little bit of a wool singularity, and all the items just go right into a pile right here. So if we jump into survival, as you can see, we just have a ton of this stuff. We can fill up multiple double chests of wool from 1 minute of using the build. As you can see, this is a ton of wool incredibly quickly, and you can also just dye your sheep to get different colors of wool. So you're probably wondering how all this works, and it's actually really simple. So as you know, you can shear sheep, and you can even do it automatically using dispensers. But on Bedrock Edition, you can get kind of silly with it. You can have multiple dispensers all shear the same sheep, up to a maximum of like 20 something dispensers if you surround them on all sides. So each one of these dispensers is going to shear the same sheep, and it's going to produce a couple of wool per dispenser. So in today's build, we have 12 dispensers all firing at one sheep, and that is going to give us a ton of wool every single time, which is insane. As you can see, we just got 28 wool from a single shear, but we're going to combine this with another mechanic to get 7,000 a minute. Now, after you shear a sheep, you need that guy to actually eat some grass to regrow the wool, and you could use green grass, but this is so incredibly slow, you will go crazy. So instead, we're using the newest wool regrowing technology called dry grass. You can bone meal this, and this guy can actually eat the dried grass item itself as long as mob griefing is turned on, and that will regrow his wool. And as you can see, he eats it, and that regrows his wool, and the green grass is still going to take like another 3 hours to spread over. So using dried grass is the best way to go. You can find it in mesas and deserts, and even buy it from the wandering trader. So how are we going from 28 wool every time we shear this guy to over 7,000 a minute? Well, it's really easy. So we have him in unloaded chunks. You'll notice that he's in the corner of a chunk right here. And if we just walk this way, like literally 40 blocks, that sheep is no longer in loaded chunks, but all of the dispensers and all of our redstone is. This means that we can clock all of our shear dispensers. They're going to keep shearing that sheep multiple times a second. So that sheep still has wool on it until we actually load the chunks. And then all the items drop off of it, and the guy officially gets sheared and then needs to regrow his wool. So just by having the sheep like 40 blocks away from you, you are getting insane rates. It's kind of like borderline item duplication, but it's been in the game for absolutely years. They've never made any attempt to fix it. So, I mean, you kind of like, why not? So the entire build really is just a lever and a redstone line that goes over a few chunks. And then we have our comparator clock right here. This is going to be powering the lower set of 4 dispensers. It goes up, and then it powers the set of 8 dispensers at the top. We have hoppers and chests on the backside for shear redistribution, because this thing does use a lot of shears. Now, item collection does use this water stream and just deposits everything right here. Hoppers and hopper minecarts will never keep up with 7,000 items a minute, but the player inventory can pick up as many items as you can click. So yeah, we're just picking them up and putting them in a chest. It's really cutting edge technology. Now, as for regrowing the guy's wool, we actually have a grass block underneath him that we push up into place. Then we bone meal the dry grass, and this works 100% of time. You use 1 bone meal every time you want to actually regrow his wool, and then you kind of just gotta wait a minute or so for him to actually choose to re-eat, and there's not much you can do to actually speed that up, unfortunately. Now, if in about 30 minutes of using the build, you could easily run it 1 minute per color of sheep, and that would give you around 30 double chests of wool for every different color in the game. And that's insane. There's really no reason not to build this if you want wool. So all the mechanics that apply to sheep also apply to a couple different mobs, like the bog, the snow golem, and even the mushroom. And from the bog, you're going to get a ton of red and brown mushrooms. From the snow golem, you'll get a ton of pumpkins. And from the mushroom, you just get more of these red mushrooms. Now, these are all all one-time use mobs, so I would recommend running it for maybe a couple of minutes per mob, but you're going to get a ton of items from them, and they're not particularly useful items. Now, you do need to be very careful not to run this thing for too long, especially if you're on a low-end device like a phone or something, because these items can be laggy. It can cause a very large lag spike when you first load the build, and then take a minute to resolve itself, all the item physics of the items actually falling. But once you actually have them in a pile here at the end, it's really not bad. You're not really going to notice any lag just from the items themselves. So you do not want to run this for more than like 3 minutes, even if you're on a really good computer. There's really no safety to this system, so I think we're going to modify it so that the items fall down into a trench that you can then burn if you absolutely need to. If you like these kinds of Bedrock tutorials, then subscribe for more. I have an even more overpowered wolf farm like this on the way that you're not going to want to miss. And let's hop into the tutorial. So this is everything that you're going to need to build today's farm. You can find the full materials listed down in the description of the video. The first thing we need is a build area. I would recommend somewhere that's ideally kind of flat. You don't want to be building a redstone line up and down a hill or something annoying like that. So just find a nice big flat area. Now you will be needing to chunk line this build. That is absolutely mission critical. Nothing about it will work unless you know where your chunk borders are. Now, no matter what platform you're playing on, it's actually pretty easy to find chunk borders. I'll have a video linked down below on a bunch of different ways to do it. Or you can use a texture pack that shows you your chunk borders. So we're going to start by marking out our first central chunk. This is going to be our AFK spot. You can AFK anywhere inside of this chunk. So now that we have our central chunk marked out, you just want to pick a corner, and this corner is going to be built towards your farm. So our farm is going to be off in that direction. We're going to place down a block right here and then a lever. And we have to stand on this side of the lever when we are using the farm. If you're standing over here and the farm is on, it's not going to work. You have to be standing within the central chunk. If you're playing on a server and you don't trust your friends to use it correctly, then like build a little house that they have to stand in to actually use the farm. That way you know that it works. And now we just need to build the redstone line going diagonally to our build. Now, if you're playing on a simulation distance of 4, this is really easy. We're just going to go out by 32 blocks. If you're playing on sim 6, 8, 10, or 12, obviously that redstone line is going to be a lot longer. Now, if you're playing on a realm or a server, you're almost guaranteed to be on Sim 4, but you can always go into your game settings right here, scroll down, and you'll see what your simulation distance is. Here is the distances that you need to build the redstone line out, depending on your simulation distance. Now, because we're on Sim 4, we're just going to go diagonally by 32 blocks. So this right here is the corner of our chunk, and we're just going to place down 32 redstone. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know how to count to 32. Just make sure this is a perfect diagonal line. So this is our line of redstone going all the way out. And on the final piece of redstone right here, this should be the corner of a chunk. Now, you shouldn't need to double check it, but I would recommend that you do. Just make sure this is the corner of a chunk right here. And now we're going to go beyond this. And this 2x2 right here is where your sheep is actually going to be standing. And then we're going to have our lines of dispensers right here. So you can just go ahead and place in all of your 12 dispensers. And that way we just kind of like have a solidified position for the build. So now you don't need to worry about chunk borders or anything else. We have it all lined up perfectly. So you want to go back to your lever. We're going to flick this to the on position, and then we're going to place a redstone dust to the left of every single redstone that is currently in our build until the redstone turns off. When it turns off, you're going to break this one, put in a repeater, and then a block ahead of it, and then you can remove that one, and we're just going to repeat this line going all the way down. So just keep on placing in redstone, and this will turn off fairly quickly. Now this one is turned off. We can place a 1 going to the right and a block ahead of it, and we're basically just going to kind of zigzag this redstone line all the way to the build. So this one here is run out, place a block in front of there, and now we're just going to keep going until we get to the build. Now, once you get to this point right here, we can actually install the comparator clock. So we do not need this redstone right here. We're going to place in a comparator right here on subtract mode. We don't need this redstone. Instead, we're going to put a block right here, and then we need a piece of redstone dust here, piece of glass right there, and redstone, and that is going to make the clock for the build itself. Now we need in a solid block right here, piece of redstone on top of all of this so that it activates all of our top 8 dispensers. And now we're just going to mine downwards a little bit. So we need to mine out a 2x2 of blocks right here. We're going to have in a repeater right here, and then just 3 redstone dust to connect that together. That's going to power your lower 2 dispensers. And then on the other side, it's a pretty similar deal. So we're just going to mine out this 2x2, and then we're just going to have redstone on all of this right there. and a repeater, and that is going to power all of your dispensers in the entire build. So now I would recommend going back to the beginning over here and just turning this off. Once you're standing over here, you should be able to see that redstone clocking to indicate that the build is running and not in unloaded chunks. So we're going to finish up the back side of the build just by placing in a hopper facing into the backs of each one of these dispensers. Now you'll need to be crouching in order to place all of these, but you'll definitely want these hoppers in place. That way you can actually restock all these dispensers easier. We're also going to put a double chest on top of these and make sure to fill that up with shears. You're going to need a lot of shears. So we're going to finish up the redstone on this front side of the build right here. So we need to mine out these 4 blocks going down by 2 layers and these 2 blocks right here. You also want to punch out that one and then put in yourself a solid block. That way you have this general shape right here off the front of the build. So we're going to place in ourselves a sticky piston facing upwards. We need in a dirt block above that, and then we're going to place in 2 solid blocks right here. Redstone torch off of the side of the piston, solid block right there, and then another redstone torch right here. We're going to place in a piece of redstone at the bottom of the hole, and then a lever right here. So when you flick this, that should push your dirt up and turn on your torch. So now we need in a block above that torch, dirt right here, and then a dispenser. You can go ahead and fill that up with some bone meal, and now anytime you flick this, that should click. So to finish this out, we're going to place in a piece of redstone dust right here and then a redstone lamp, and that's going to tell you when that dirt is up and when your sheep is being fed. So if you run the farm while this lamp is on or while that dirt is up, then a bunch of items are going to land right here, and you're going to have a lot less efficiency because none of these bottom 4 dispensers will be shearing the sheep. So make sure this is always down. So now we're going to place in a couple of glass blocks right here and then your dry grass. Very important that you use dry grass there. I'm going to flip around to this side of the build. We need in a shelf on this side of the block right there. I don't know why that was so difficult, but that's going to stop your items from landing on your dirt and prevent loss in your build. You also need in a temporary block right here and then a couple of chains going up. This is for boat alignment, very important. We're going to place in a stone cutter in the corner. You also have to use a stone cutter, very important. This is all finely engineered. So on the front of the build, we're going to place in a block right here and then a couple pieces of glass, and then dig yourself a little bit of a trench for your items to fall into that you can then burn the items if you have to. And then we need in another block here and a couple more solid blocks just in this general shape. So now we're going to grab a water bucket, crouch, and click on that stone cutter. That's going to flush all of the items down into our little zone right here. And now we need to install the boat. You have to do this in a kind of a particular manner. So we need to crouch and look at the upper left corner of the stone cutter right here. And that way the boat goes smoothly into this corner right here. If you place it off of this corner, then it could go down here, and you really don't want that. And you also cannot have the boat be in this edge either. You have to have the boat be lined up underneath the shelf and stuck on these chains. That way all the dispensers can hit the sheep and the sheep can actually eat the dry grass as well. So now it's the simple task of getting a sheep in there. You can simply lead one in there and then just kind of push it into the boat, and it should be fairly easy to do that. Once you have the sheep in there, you can just kind of box it in with 2 more glass right here, and the build is actually done and you are ready to run it as long as you have a bunch of dispensers in here. And remember to stockpile a little bit of bone meal in here. So make sure that this lamp here is off, and now we can go run the build. So stand behind this lever, flick the lever, and now all of your redstone over there should be clocking. Now, if you want a more guaranteed way to limit the amount of time that the farm runs, you can simply shoot an arrow onto a wooden pressure plate, and that arrow will despawn after 1 minute, making sure that the farm only runs for a single minute. You can also put a block above this just to stop players from standing on top of it. So now that we've run the farm for a minute, we can go ahead and walk over there, and then you'll probably feel a little bit of frame rate drop just from those items, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal after a second once all the items have figured themselves out. And we should just have a huge stockpile of wool down here, and I would recommend going in and flicking that just as soon as you get over here, because waiting for them to eat is kind of horrible. So yeah, your storage system should go somewhere generally in this area. You're gonna want a lot of chests. It's a lot of items. Like, it's not a small quantity of wool by any measure of the imagination. Yeah, we have 5 single chests full of wool just from that little test run of the build, and it's just incredible. So if you enjoyed this video, then drop a like, share it around, and subscribe for more, and thank you for watching.